Hello friends, welcome once again to your channel. On this occasion, I'm going to show you how to knit this beautiful scarf, so that we can complete the set. Before starting, I want to thank you. You are already subscribed to this Blessed Crochet channel, and as well as to all the people who write to me, and leave me your comments, and also your suggestions. I'm going to start by weaving. Chain stitches. Let's try to tighten in this part. Or we will use a crochet. A smaller number. We can stretch them. I.e. let's knit our chain stitches tight. And we are going to knit in pairs. This means that we are going to knit 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 and so on until we get the length we need. Once we have our chain stitches, as much as you need. In this case I have put 160. Let's go to call to make one more chain stitch. And I'm going to start knitting. Single stitch, next chain stitch. Single stitch, next single stitch. And so I will continue to weave. One single stitch for each chain stitch. To the end. And this is how it will become. Once the single stitch turn is over, I upload a stitch chain. Twist and upside down. At the same time, I'm going to lose this piece of wool that I have left, and I'm going to weave single stitch. Next single stitch. Next single stitch and so on. I'm going to weave a single stitch for each space. And this is how it will look like. I have already finished this second round of single stitch. The next thing I'm going to do is, before finishing my last stitch, I will change. And I will close with the opposite tone. In this part one can now remove my material. I will withdraw it, because I will no longer need it for the time being. 1, 2 chain stitches gyro. In this first space I will not knit, because it is the equivalent of seeing. I am going to withdraw. This I have here is the equivalent of these 2 chain stitches. I'm going to move on to the next space. And in it I can pass through the back. And I start to lift. At the same time that I lose these pieces of wool. 1, 2, 3. And close chain stitch. I pass a stitch without knitting. And in which it follows, I lift again. 1, 2, 3. Sierra chain stitch. I pass through an unwoven space in which I continue to. I return to repeat 1, 2, 3 Sierra chain stitch. I pass a stitch without knitting and in the one that follows. If you notice, you have the loop first. I lift the stitch 1 laced. 2 lazada 3. I close chain stitch step and repeat loop again. 1 loop 2 loop 3. I close chain stitch and step stitch without knitting. And I will repeat the same process until the end of the entire tour. And this is what it looks like. Once my return is over, I will pass this stitch without knitting. And here at the last stitch, a double crochet. And here, I withdraw my material. We are going to start again, but where we start we are on this side. In this space, I'm going to start where the second chain stitch is. double wool. A chain stitch and in the same space a single stitch. I pass and take like this. From side to side my stitch. And at the same time, we may lose this little piece of wool we have left. You single stitch and relieve. Half of the poof a single stitch. Next from side to side. Single stitch and relieve y la mitad single stitch. Next from side to side. The following single embossed stitch. Half single stitch. And so I will continue the whole tour in relief. Halfway. En relieve. Halfway. In relief, look how it looks from side to side. Single stitch and in the middle. And this until the end of the whole round. Once the lap is over, I am going to remove the material. And I am going to start on the opposite side. We are going to do the same process. If you notice here at the beginning there were 2 laps. But then I'm just going to place one. I'm going to go where I have my first single stitch. I will try to locate it, because it has been a little bit closed. There I begin to weave. Dos chain stitches. I am going to move on to the next space. I start lifting my puff 1, 2, 3. I close. Chain stitch. I pass a stitch without knitting and in the one that follows. Look, we pass a stitch and in the next one I repeat 1, 2, 3. Sierra chain stitch. I pass a stitch without knitting and in which follows 1, 2, 3. Sierra chain stitch. I pass a stitch without knitting and in the one that follows I repeat. Poof 1, 2, 3. Chain stitch, I pass a stitch without knitting and so on. I will continue all the way back. If you look at the turns and stitch puff, they will not vary. It will always be the same. And once our return is over, let's start again. Here we start. Imagine that we have already finished our return. I will try to outperform him because the sunlight is running out. So I want to take advantage of. Let's knit here. Where is our second chain stitch? A chain stitch in the same space. A single stitch. And then we will move on to the next stitch. And to take it in stitch relief. On the single stitch puff end. Next poof. Single stitch and relieve. On the single stitch poof. And about the poof. En relieve. Half of the puff single stitches and over the puff. In relief and thus. Let's expand this scarf. As much as we need it. I'm going to get a lit lead of myself. I want to show you the preview. Before showing them how to put on their beards or the scarf bangs. Look at this is how it turned out. These are the turns that I am going to leave. Everyone can leave you more or less. This will be to your liking. I have already finished, so my return is in single stitches. It should be in normal relief and so on. Well, I'm going to make a chain stitch in the last lap. I am going to knit it in single stitch. All my single stitch turn. One for each space. To match the part where we started, yes then. Just as we start here at the beginning with 2 laps. So we have to finish with 2 laps, yes. Then I will finish the round, but first let me show you. I show you this one that I already have an advantage. Look at this is how it will look like. On the edge of the other side we will be left with the band-aids. In this case I have lost the colored ones. I understand and have left only the light colored ones. I'm going to take a little piece of cardboard or cardboard. Whatever you have at hand. We are only going to more or less to know how much we need to leave you. And let's start. This is how long our fringe will be left, yes. Then to give you more or less an idea. What you look at. Your carton. Either you or your cardboard is what's going to look like. Then I will leave you 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's go rolling 6, 7. 8, 9, 10 and 11. This time there will only be 11. On each side. And here at the bottom we can cut. I will withdraw. We are going to leave. In this case we have 2, 4, 5, 2, 4 and 5 left. Yes, I will drink in half. And I will place them where the color fits me. In this case, they are placed on the back side. In this way. I already have half of it. And when I go to take out, I am going to pass on this one. I am going to integrate it. This little piece of wool. That is why it is not necessary to cut it, I pass it on. Hide it in this case if we just pass it around here. We leave it pending and arrange it. Our beards or our bangs, and this is how it will look like. Yes, once already like this. Good, we cut it to fit more or less the size. And ready. To see in this part. I'm going to open it a little bit, because the fringe stayed with me. On the outside. Now I want them all to look the same. And I am going to do this process on the opposite side. It's going to be easier because we don't have any left here. Material to lose. Then what are we going to do? Let's place our bangs. The 5 of us take them in half. And on the other hand, which is this? That's where I pass. In the center. And thus I would be ending my garment. I am going to complete them. And this is how it has turned out. And what do you think? This nice detail. For your grandmother.